Welcome to Notable Approvals. I am attorney Amanda Shaffer. If I look a little happier, I just got fantastic news from a client that a fraud and admissibility 601 waiver was approved. And those cases are never easy. I'll talk about that maybe next week or the week after, depending. We're still waiting for the green card approval, but the 601 was the hard part. But today, get to the case in a second. I first want to remind everybody that tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, myself and attorney Aaron Shapiro will be hosting a live Q&A discussion on staying safe for the holidays, and it's for domestic violence victims or anyone who's in relationships that's having problems, to give you some options on what you can do to keep yourself safe, your legal options, as well as answering any questions that you have about it. So don't forget to set your reminder and like us and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and LinkedIn so that you don't miss this or any other of our lives. Today's case is in the same theme as our live tonight. It is a VAWA case for Violence Against Women Act. It's about a client who's a native and citizen of Jamaica. She first came to the U.S. in 2002 with a B-2 visa. More than 10 years later, she met her U.S. citizen husband, and then in 2014, she married him. About 6 months after they started living together, they started to have some problems with her roommate. So she rented a room from somebody, and he didn't really have permission to be there at first. But it wasn't just that. It was that he was really disrespectful to her, would call her names, and the roommate even observed him physically punch her and slap her at one point. So he was not. So the roommate really wanted him to go. And unfortunately, at the time, my client couldn't afford a full apartment, so she was able to fortunately find him a room at his uncle's house, which he had a job at the time, but then got fired shortly after. She was able to afford both rooms. But it was a struggle, and he wasn't able to find a new job. And that's when things started to get even worse for her. And what happened is not only did money become an issue, but he would start arguments for no reasons. He started going out late with friends and coming back really late. And then the real kicker is that she found out he was cheating on her. And when he tried to confront him about it, that's when he hit her again and again called her all these names. Now, she did not go to the police. She was scared. She didn't want to get him arrested. And we know about the physical abuse, not just from her statement and her roommate's statement, but because she did take photographs of it. And that's a good lesson for anybody watching who's in an abusive relationship, that you need to document it. I know, first of all, I 100% advise you go to the police. Go to the emergency room, go to a doctor. That's the number one thing you should do. But if you're in a situation where you can't, or you're just too afraid to, one way to document it is at least take pictures of the abuse, and then we can talk about what happened. So that's what she did, and she finally started going to therapy after that. And, eventually realized that she needed to just leave this guy because he was really bad news for her. And, she really loved him. So in the title or in the description, I wrote that they didn't really live together for very long, and they didn't have much financial evidence. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the relationship wasn't real. And that's why this is all looked at on a case-by-case basis. They were forced to lose. They were living together, which is a requirement for DACA that you live with the person for the abusive spouse for some period of time. There's actually not a lower limit there. So it was a few months for her where they are actually physically living in the same place, but instead of her trying to pretend that they lived together longer, she was just honest about it. And of course, that's what is the right thing to do, and it worked. So they had a different living situation, that she's here, he's here, but there's a reason for that. Like I've always tell people when they ask me, is it okay that we live separately? My question is, why did you live separately? in terms of the joint finances, they just didn't have much finances in general. There wasn't much to join. And really the only piece of joint financial evidence was the letter from the roommate or landlord, because that's who they paid the rent to. And they had rent receipts with both their names on that the landlord had given them. Other than that, the rest of the marriage evidence was her really detailed affidavit explaining everything from the time they met to started dating, why she loved him, explaining the whole situation with the living. She didn't even actually go into all details about the joint finances because there just wasn't, it was clear that there wasn't much there to begin with. We also had greeting card that he had given her, some other greeting cards for people congratulating her on and him on the wedding. And then her cousin, who was the one who was involved with helping the uncle rent the room, he also wrote a detailed affidavit. So that was all the marriage evidence. And then in terms of the abuse evidence, again, we had this landlord letter who she firsthand witnessed the abuse, and she wrote about that. And then we had the photographs. No police report, no therapist letter, no doctor letter. Now, I'm not saying this is, and no court papers. I'm not saying this is ideal, but what I am saying is that it's still possible to get approved even without some of those things. But it's not easy to get approved, and it doesn't mean everyone's going to get approved. Again, it's going to depend on the particular facts and circumstances in your own case. And whenever someone comes to us to do one of these cases, we look through the evidence that they have. If we feel that they don't have enough to prove abuse, we will recommend things like going to a therapist. Honestly, I recommend a therapist to everyone anyways, even if you're not in a bad relationship, but especially if you are, because it's a very difficult time. So, and in this case, our client did go to a therapist, but she didn't have the letter, but we didn't need it. But ideally, you're going to have one of, more concrete evidence like the police report or whatever. And again, I can't stress enough not to be afraid to call the police, and don't worry about your significant other getting in trouble. They should not be abusing you. They gave up their right to not get in trouble when they started abusing you. So if your life is in serious danger or even serious bodily harm, don't hesitate. Don't be afraid. It doesn't matter what your immigration status is. It doesn't matter what your spouse's or significant other's immigration status is. It doesn't matter if anyone has a criminal record. Well, all that matters is that you get help and you're safe. There are other alternatives out there if you don't have that immediate risk. And that's some of the stuff that we're going to talk about tonight. And we're going to try to help people stay safe tonight during the holidays. Oh, let me mute that. So let me just wrap up this case real quick to say that our client, another little interesting thing that happened in this case was so the way the VAWA works, even though in some cases you can file the VAWA and the green card application together, when you file it together, it all goes to the Vermont Service Center. The Vermont Service Center has people who are specifically trained to deal with domestic abuse cases. They approve or deny the VAWA. Once they approve or deny the VAWA, it then gets sent to your local field office, in this case, New York, and then your adjustment application is decided. So that's where they look at if you entered with inspection, if you have a criminal history, if you have any immigration violations. So it's two separate offices making the decision. And there's often a big pause in between getting your VAWA approved and getting your green card approved. And they can even call you in for an interview for the green card portion. And with this client, we checked the box that she wanted an employment authorization document upon approval of her VAWA. So apparently the thing got approved. And then all of a sudden, we didn't know. I get in the mail a new work permit. And I looked at the category and it said C31 or 33. And one's DACA, one's VAWA beneficiary. And that meant that she had an approved VAWA, but we never got the approval notice. And she had applied to renew her work permit, and that was still pending, but it was a different receipt number. So I was like, I think this was approved, but we never got an approval notice. I don't see how or why they would send you a card in this category unless this is the employment authorization document, unless they approve the VAWA. But I never like to get clients too excited until things are known for sure and concrete. So we waited, and then eventually we waited the 30 days after that to get it. We never got the notice. I had to contact them several times to say, hey, we never got the notice. Can you please send it to us? Eventually we did get it, and it's helpful to have just for peace of mind. I mean, it was approved, and then it took over a year after her VAWA was approved for her to have her green card approved. But when it finally was, she was ecstatic. I mean, this has changed her whole life. She, just like everyone else who obtained a green card through VAWA or an abuse waiver, if they did an I-751, in 3 years, she will be eligible for citizenship. And she also has, some kids back in Jamaica that she can't wait to bring over here. So we're really thrilled for her about that. So that's all today for notable approvals. Again, just a reminder, tune in tonight, 9 p.m., Facebook Live, YouTube Live. Attorney Aaron Shapiro and I will be doing a Q&A discussion on staying safe for the holidays, what the options are for domestic violence victims. We'll answer your questions live. Also, you're welcome to email us or message us privately if you want to ask a question anonymously. We're here to help, and we want everybody to have a happy and healthy holiday. So thank you all for watching. I will see you all tonight at 9 p.m. Have a great day.